Hi everyone. Tonight I'm going to be reading my own chart for a change. Well, only one very important transit on my chart, which I have been discussing in my classes with the students whenever we study Chiron. The reason why Chiron is extremely important to me is because I've had firsthand experience on how Chiron can immensely change the story of a person's life on a chart. And my Chiron is not just conjunct my moon in the 12th house, and my 12th house is in its natural sign Pisces, although my Chiron moon is in Aries, so it's a very primal wounding even before I was born, or at least at birth, It is also at the same time part of this aspect on a chart that is called a yod, or the finger of God. And it's not a very common, in fact, it's one of the more rare aspects in a chart. And an aspect like that shows two inconjunctions, which really are blind spots, and one sextile, which shows where two parts of that isosceles triangle agree, and perhaps a slight tweak, something that can be changed or shifted, would open up the tension being felt at the fulcrum of that isosceles triangle, which is a yod. And it's called the finger of God because it's the finger of destiny. So people with this placement experience repetitive patterns throughout their lives and feel that they are called to solve it. And if they do, then they unlock a lot of things that have been obstacles in their psyche, in their lives, and therefore the chart moves more freely and blessings come in. So I have been working on my Chiron conjunct moon at 15 and 17 degrees. So the conjunction is 2 degrees, which makes it a very tight one. And in a yod, it always has to be 0 to 2 degrees. And so the fulcrum of that moves into my 7th house of partnerships, committed partnerships in marriage, or long-term relationships, on my black moon Lilith, which is at 17 degrees. It's an exact degree to my Chiron. My moon is 15 degrees. And then the next blind spot is between that black moon Lilith to my 2nd house Saturn. And the Saturn and the moon are the ones that agree on the chart. So there you see a very, very intense yod. And my black moon Lilith is in Scorpio, the exalted sign of black moon Lilith, which means it's felt very intensely. I started off by healing the moon in Chiron, which really involves my hesitance, or I guess subconsciously, as a baby in the womb, or even right at birth, because that is the birth channel. Chiron represents the birth channel, your wounding as you came into earth or came into this realm. And the 12th house is the womb, because the 1st house is where the baby comes out. That's when you were born. That's where the sun was shining on the horizon the minute you were born. And this is where we base your placement on a chart by your time of birth. And so I was in the 12th house with that moon conjunct Chiron. The moon represents mother. And therefore, in the womb of my mother, I already felt like I didn't want to be here. And something similar may have happened to my mother too. A wounding of not maybe wanting to have a child. or not being ready, or some other issue involving her pregnancy. And so the minute I was born, and in Aries, Aries is the baby of the zodiac. So my moon and Chiron, the wounding, are in Aries. So I emotionally felt in my body when I was born that I did not want to be here, or that I did not belong here, or that life was going to present me with a lot of pain. There was a subconscious knowing in that child. And therefore, I conducted myself in this life defensively, despite all the other aspects on my chart showing a very loving, generous person with a stellium of planets in Leo in my 5th house, which gave me a lot of fun, fun and pleasure. So I was a really happy kid. I was a happy person. I'm a naturally happy person with all those placements, except my moon conjunct Chiron was extremely painful. And I have Saturn in my 2nd house as part of that yod I was telling you about. And Saturn is my relationship with my father, which is beautiful. He's in my 2nd house. He was very supportive. And it's in Gemini. And so he let me know. He communicated to me my value. He gave me value. By the way he spoke to me, by the way he listened to me, by the way he understood me. And I would like tonight to use my chart as an example, because right now the transits, Chiron I'm on my Chiron return, and the Chiron transit in Aries is at an exact conjunction now to my moon, 2 degrees away from my natal Chiron, which means all these issues have been increasingly challenging, and it involves my self-value, my relationship to self, and my wanting to escape from this world. And I think this is a very good way to give more depth and insight into what I teach about Chiron. And as much as this is a very sensitive part of my chart, I've always had the courage to be who I am. I've always had the courage to show people authentically what I'm going through. I've got my rising sign in Aries, my moon in Aries, stellium of planets in Leo, my Jupiter in the 9th house in Sagittarius. I approach life with a philosophy that's very spiritual. And my Venus is in Gemini in the 3rd house. So the way I communicate also involves, I like to talk about my relationships too. Whether it's romantic or not, just, I talk about relationships. I think about those things. And I love communicating and I love expressing myself. But it's in Gemini, so I intellectualize things. I study it. I get data, I get facts. And then I articulate all those things. So here I am with all those placements. I'm going to try to explain it in layman's terms for those of you who don't know astrology. So I'm going to analyze the Chiron moon aspects in the birth chart from a more psychological and evolutionary perspective. So Chiron, as I said, symbolizes an opening, a bridge. And the Chironic wound, the wound which is a site of possibilities, can also be interpreted as life itself. Life begins with a wound. The wound formed in the womb of the mother as the embryo burrows herself into the walls of the uterus. And this wound is open and thus full of potential. So it keeps changing and growing, exhausting all the possibilities presented to it. It's wholesome, yet fragile. And individuals like me with Moon Chiron aspects in natal charts have been imprinted with this primordial image. Even though we aren't conscious of it, birth itself is a wound. And by our sheer existence, we inflicted pain upon our mother, our first safe link to life. Could we help it? Probably not. Depending on the exact nature of the aspect, this image may be modified. So other people might have different aspects going on there, and it kind of shifts the story a little bit. But what remains will still reflect a variation of this theme. This theme is potent and strong with anyone with Moon conjunct Chiron, and the inevitability of life without wounding. So, the Chironic dilemma here with the Chiron moon has such a pre-verbal, unmediated quality, which makes it almost impossible to define, yet potent on the level of sentiments, of feelings. Some French poet, I forgot his name, but he had this, and he described this like sometimes teardrops fall into one's heart just the same way rain falls over town. Sometimes all one can do is to feel unsettled by that formless, nameless feeling, which is aroused randomly, transient yet persistent, strange yet familiar. Sometimes none of the languages we know can help us decode that incident, which is quietly taking place at the very heart of our existence. It is just life as we know it through our chironic filter. But the question remains, with this configuration in a natal chart, can we ever feel at home without opening ourselves to the possibility of wounding? Can we bypass this primordial condition? This is what I had to contend with intrinsically from the day I was born with this placement on my chart. And I must say, it has been validated since I am on my Chiron return. I have lived with it for 49, 50 years and counting. As with all Chiron contacts, the wound cannot and should not be avoided. I've always known this. The Chironic wounds serve an evolutionary purpose and have been built into our composition by design, not by chance. And therefore, there's a reason for this. And I've spent my life trying to understand this. It's part of my karma, having it as part of my yod, with Saturn, the planet of karma, showing me a way out. In this case, Moon Chiron conjunction serves as a supremely sensitive point in our psyche. So it's a one-of-a-kind receiver that's finely tuned to the needs of others. Especially it's in my 12th house of spirituality, enlightenment, connection to other worlds, to the divine, a way out of karma, moksha. unconditional love for all. At the same time, it's the darkest house. It is the house of your self-undoing. It's a very complex placement. So the individual with a well-functioning moon, and I do have that. Luckily, my moon is trine my sun and Jupiter. The moon can intuitively understand what others need to feel at home, safe and comfortable. And Chiron here adds an extra layer of perception by turning sympathy into empathy, and empathy into the ability to heal self and others. This empathy, however, is not of the Neptunian kind, which is often accompanied by subtle glamorization of the spiritual process, fueling it, right? It is rather triggered by immediate recognition of the universal awkwardness embedded in our human neediness. So we all have basic needs, right? So embarrassing needs even. Needs which may hurt others. And the moon and Chiron conjunction opens a space for reciprocity here. Let me handle your needs with sensitivity because you will handle my needs the same way. It's a very kind placement. Such an innate sensitivity to the concept of neediness can make these individuals, including myself, brilliant therapists, healers, guides, and gurus. Well, that's what they say. I wouldn't really assign that adjective to myself, but I do have a lot of compassion and I feel people's wounds. And those that have had readings with me know this about me. In many cases, even if the individual is not engaged in any of these activities professionally, like me, I'm engaged in it professionally. This person with the moon conjunct Chiron, like me, feels attracted to helping and also to the healing fields or modalities, forms of spirituality. And it's a double whammy on my chart because I've got Jupiter, the planet of God, or the guru, in its natural house, the 9th house of spirituality, in the sign that it naturally rules, Sagittarius. Anyhow, parenting, and especially motherhood, it can be a very significant process for people with the moon Chiron contacts. The birth of a child can trigger all the psychological sensitivities around concepts of needing and dependence, and thus offer a unique opportunity for using the wound as a means of bonding deeply with our children and generally all those who come to depend on us later in life, including our aging parents. So regardless of how moon Chiron may function in everyone's psyche, the individual with this conjunction in a natal chart, will often display sensitivity concerning those who are connected to her by blood, family function or dysfunction, right? Parental expectations, child rearing, and understanding one's past and biological roots will remain sensitive themes no matter how old one gets. Now, my moon Chiron in the womb, in the sign of the baby, is sextile my Saturn in the 2nd house. And I have always had a fear of giving birth. So I don't know, it just seems that is worth mentioning. So now, I don't know if right now with the transits, with Venus having just left my moon in Chiron, it brought about certain situations in life that are asking me to pay attention to my core wounding and to find a way to resolve how I relate to life and woundings within my relationships with my Black Moon Lilith in my Yod and my Saturn and my fears and my sense of value, where I get my value from, my open enemies and my hidden wounds and hidden enemies, which also happen in the 12th house. My ability to transcend these core fears and insecurities that will that has come full circle on my chart is asking me now on its shaman journey back, because when Chiron returns, it is Chiron the shaman, and therefore the task is to overcome all the difficult aspects of that moon conjunct Chiron or your Chiron. So I am being tasked now to confront very deep hidden emotions that I may have overlooked, especially there's an in conjunction to my Black Moon Lilith. That means it's a blind spot. The parts of me too that come up that I subjugate in relation to others, the parts of me that I don't want to show or share. I'm asked to go deep into that, especially Uranus is at the trigger point of my Yod, which means that planet just keeps poking at it and poking at it. See? So this Chiron return of mine is intense, is an understatement. Right? But because I have done a lot of work spiritually, I'm actually welcoming it. You see? Because it's teaching me more. It's making me grow. And this is what I mean when I tell people to sit with the discomfort. Sit with it. And really, really look at yourself. Every reaction, every thought, every fear, every insecurity, every trigger. Sit with it without judgment and dissect it until you completely understand what's going on. Then have the compassion, because Chiron's arms reach out as a healer from the center, the heart. The only way to heal Moon Chiron conjunction in the 12th house is through unconditional love. It is the house of unconditional love, in the sign of unconditional love, with the moon mother who's supposed to unconditionally love its child. And yet there's a wound. So that's what I have to contend with. My Black Moon Lilith is suffering a lot. It's already subjugated as it is, but my Chiron, if I transcend this last leg, because I've done all the work, heal those wounds. I don't have to go into detail. But this last leg, if I get this one right, I would have opened up my Yod. That Yod will be free, and those repetitive patterns will dissolve naturally. Now, I hope that this has helped you to understand the process of how an astro chart is used in actual life. I give people readings, I explain parts of the chart that I say they need to contemplate on, they need to observe. And I'm showing you a little bit of how I analyze my chart, my own life, and my process. Left, right, and center, I've been met with challenging situations, from the death of my father, January 15, to a lot of other things happening in my personal life. It's all pointing to my moon and Chiron. my Black Moon Lilith, and my Saturn, my self-value, my relationship to others and how they relate to me, and my own emotional makeup with woundings involving not wanting to be here, and my wounding involving my mother. So all these things are coming into play. And I know, because I work on it, right, that I'm going to be fine. I'm strong, and this explains why I've been given a lot of Leo placements and Jupiter Sag in the 9th house, and my rising sign in Aries. I have the courage, I know I'll be okay. But the reason I'm also sharing this is not really for myself, because I can just do this on my own in the privacy of my home. I mean, it is in my 12th house where you hide. I'm supposed to hide that. But see, part of my process of transcending it is to bring it out of the 12th house, because my Black Moon Lilith wants to hide it, my vulnerability. And here I am now trying to bring it out so that I can look at it and shine a light on it. And so discussing it openly like this is one way of doing that. And this is what I mean when I say, when I give you a reading and I tell you to look at something on your chart that's painful, that you deny, have the courage to see the truth. Have the courage to confront your pain. Have the courage and humility and vulnerability to really assess who you are. Not blame or not point fingers at anyone else. Just see it for what it is and help yourself be freed from the things on a chart that I show you that will open up your life and give it more ease. It only takes courage and humility. And, determination and consistency. So you really need to work on a chart. Don't do it for entertainment. Don't go to an astrologer just because you want to see things. Sure, you can do that, but what a waste of money, right? I do this because it helps people. I do it because when I see the problems on the chart, I can easily find the solutions. But if you don't do the work on your own, like what I am doing with myself, right? I walk the talk and I make sure I do, because I want to do my work with integrity. And so when I give readings to people, I hope that even when the reading is over, you go back and you try to work that chart, because it's a cheat sheet. One of my students have told me that it's a cheat sheet, and it's the Akashic record of your life now. So when I tell you, look at your attitude when it comes to the way you speak, when you're overwhelmed, look at how you react and what else is being affected on your chart. Do you really want to keep doing the same thing over and over again? Or do you want to come to your Chiron return at 49 to 51 years old with wisdom, with an inner peace that is indestructible regardless of what's going on around you? There are many things that have been happening in my life, and I know that there's this space inside of me that is more still than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago, even from last year. Every year I make it a point to find my center and to maintain it. And this is the last leg of this journey. It's hitting my crown chakra, and I welcome the challenges. And I hope from this example, the next time you come to me for a reading, you'll take it a little bit more seriously. Okay, so that's it, guys. Thank you so much for listening.